These people are always having that problem. And when he wrote those pieces, he was addressing these people because that's what they wanted to hear. And if you read the footnotes to those passages, he says, and anyone who goes and believes what I've just said and does this is an idiot. It'd be like today, somebody saying something on TV with a sort of, tongue-in-cheek type of way. Now, people always, bash Crowley. My God, that man, we have people in power today who dwarf the kind of, if he was, malign, my goodness, what we have today with these people's champions doing infinitely worse. So we need to do our homework there. Again, he was a man who had some very, pernicious parts to his personality. But so does a lot of other people. So do the people ruling the world today. Did you know that he stood up against Zionism? Do you know that he also pointed out the child sacrifices that have been happening down through the centuries of the world? Do you know that before Christianity even became involved in this world conflict against the establishment, that it was white occultists who were fighting it for thousands of years? Christianity is a very recent camp on the valley of the army, right? You're a very welcome contingent in the fighting against universal evil of principalities and higher places. But don't ever forget that Christianity is a new contingent to the fight. Long before the Christians even knew that this stuff was happening, 25,000 years ago or 30,000 years ago, when it was in Egypt, when it was ruining Egypt, and when it was ruining Atlantis and Lemuria, it was people that Christians called occultists that were out there trying to heal humanity and save the world. Now, you've brought your tents, and you're armed up, and you have some very great truth. But there are many encampments in this great army. The Christians seem to want to turn on the other encampments and fight everybody and say, you, down with you, we're the only guys. No, you're 2,000 years old, and evil is dating from way back before that. Next question. Yeah, please, questions only. A lot of people in line. Go ahead.
Of blood in a lot of the books that I've read, that I'm wondering what is the meaning, importance, and purpose of blood, royal blood, human blood, and the shedding of that blood.
You need to get the Atlantis DVD. Either get the Atlantis book or the Atlantis DVD. That's a very, very important question. Blood has certain occult properties that these people want to release. The cortisol. There's other occult properties, and I go into that in the Atlantis DVD. It's 15 hours long, and in the Atlantis book. And it's very important because it's happening today. Children are being abducted. There's ritual killings. In lots of ways, yeah.
According to your work, we were genetically manipulated. My question is simple. What is it to be human? What is human, and who or what created humans?
The human is, we've been talking about all the aberrations that stop a person from being human. The human being is the person who understands the message of selfhood and the message of enlightenment, who ends his dependency. And remember, there is no dictionary definition, though. Because remember, each person's enlightenment and each person's sense of humanity is unique as your own fingerprint. We turn so much to authorities to tell us what is, that we forget that the real magic of life is completely unique. Your own path of enlightenment cannot be taught to you by some guru. Some guru can talk about his journey to you, and that might be very interesting. But your path of enlightenment is absolutely unique. From beginning to end, your creative intelligence, your journey on that path is yours. It's not another person's. Now, we have always wanted to tribalize it and band it together and package it, you see, and have a guru and have an ashram and have a church. Immediately, that stops being true. So I cannot say to another person what that is. It's their own discovery, it's their own development. And I think that nature teaches us. Yesterday at the talk, somebody asked about the power of animals. They said they had some transformative experiences with animals. Well, of course you do. Because animals don't relate to you as persona or shadow. The animal's relationship to you is only to you as a self, even if you're not in selfhood. This is a miraculous thing. That's why people say it's healing to be around animals. Because the animal is not buying into all that persona stuff. The animal relates to a person as purely a self. So you learn about the mystery of selfhood and the mystery of humanness from animals and from what we laughingly call the inanimate. Now, I write about this a lot, so there's information on the websites. You have to fall in love with that which is not animate, right? Which you think is dead. You see, the problem with us is that human beings always want to spend most of their energy getting into relationships with other human beings. Because human beings give us back all the cues and affectations that our egos desire. But there's a whole world of stuff. When have you last talked to the light around you? When have you last addressed the air or the ocean? The sky is painted a different hue for you every 5 minutes. Do you notice it? Right? There's simplicity all around you. You can't say, is a dead rose more beautiful than a live rose? Nature is painting her picture for you every single day. There's a miracle going on everywhere. Have you looked at the skin of a fruit? Or, are you aware of the decaying buildings and the beauty in that? Or a rusted lamppost, or a guitar, or a piano, the intense beauty in that. No, no, no. We're all looking to human beings because we're so in need of dependency. And there's this whole other panoply out there, a whole incredible, magical, mystical tradition, a world. And we're not even aware of it, the beauty of animals and what they can teach us, you see? So the fully human being is a person who actually desists from a lot of his relationships with human beings, if you want my honest opinion, and becomes very, very aware of the inanimate from the moment that you open your eyes. The great philosopher Heidegger said this. In German, the word for thinking, danken, right, is exactly the same as dankan, which is to thank you, gratitude. Meaning that every thought you think should be an act of gratitude. Is it? So the true human being, from the moment he opens his eyes, is in gratitude for his life space, for his beingness. You see? It's the same word even. Amazing.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate all the work you've done. For myself, I think the key to my opening is meditation. Is that, God, I don't even know. That's just what it feels to me. Is that something that everyone should practice?
No, I don't want to hear about everyone. All I want to hear is that you know.
Me.
Now, see, the key, in that sentence, the key one was yours. You said, my. That's it. Leave it right there. Anybody else, it's contamination. In fact, there's a whole theory of prayer. We don't have time to get into it now. That ties into all of this. There's a whole mystical tradition in the meanness of it all. We're always being displaced from the center of selfhood. Go ahead.
On the George Norrie Coast to Coast AM show in May of 2005, you predicted that Bush wasn't going to complete his second term and that Hillary Clinton would be president in 2008
Yeah.
to bring in the new age.
Right, right.
Do you still support that?
Well, I offered that as a theory. As a synthesist, as somebody who's looking at all the different things, that theory has actually been out there before I concocted it. It was in the research community, and I think it has a lot of importance because, you see, ritual death and sacrifice is a very key part of all of this. And I do, in fact, I even wrote an open letter to Jeff Rentz recently. You see, the horrors that have been perpetrated in 9/11 and the attack have been almost by design. It's almost like there's been a flagrant avoidance of international law to the point where it's almost like they're waiting for a certain kind of reaction from us. It's almost like they want us to turn on Bush so that he can be sacrificed. Sacrifice doesn't mean physical death, but it will be, for a man like him, it would be political death. Because then what would happen, there would be a vote of no confidence in government. For the first time in American history. This has happened a lot in Europe. But here it would be a vote of no confidence. Because, what would happen if another atrocity was to happen? Or even that we, as a research community, start to really find out, and the world starts to get it, that this Bush is totally complicit, and it was an inside job. My goodness, if you watch half the videos we have produced and the DVDs, it's a no-brainer. So what happens if that was really meant to happen? What happens if the people who are in charge of this debacle meant that to happen? So that then we don't vote in, the right person, or we vote in a crony like this maniac, Hillary, you see? That can happen. Or it could even go further than that, where there's no government. And suddenly we have FEMA, martial law, or some sort of chaotic situation. These are theories we need to look at. Very important to look at the idea of ritual sacrifice and death, ordo out of chaos, which brings in the New World Order. And it's not that they have one, methodology of doing it. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4. They've got 10 backup plans. If one doesn't work, you see, they move to another. If one gets exposed by the research community, they move to another. You can't just fixate on one thing and go, they're going to do this. But believe me, they are sacrificing. You can forget about sacrificing Bush. They're sacrificing the whole world. They're massacring and murdering children. Enough sacrifices going on in the world. You see? As long as they're on track to the goal of what we've been talking about, the abolition of a man's sovereignty, the removal of his emotional complex, with his own help, because he's sick of his own emotions, the move towards the New World Order, as long as they're on track to those things, they don't really mind, this and that. As long as they stay on the path. And if something goes awry, then they change the wheel, or they change strategy, or they duck and dive. But now they realize that they're being watched by a lot of different agencies. So they're very cunning. And I'm thinking then, if you know you're being watched that much, then why would you go to the exaggerated, the gratuitous length of letting everybody know really, who's got a brain, that this stuff was orchestrated. I'm concerned about that. That's all.
One last question. Can you give us contact info for people on this?
Yeah, anyone, just go to michaeltsarion.com. And that's a navigation page to the rest of my website material. It's Tsarion is spelled with Tsarion. michaeltsarion.com, and all the other information, all the websites, information, DVDs. If you want the DVDs and merchandise, then it's origins and oracles.com.